Yes, I think it's important that we continue to build new buildings and historical city centers, but we have to consider very carefully before we replace an existing building that dates to an historical context and has fit into that context probably for centuries. Instead, I think it's more important to imagine how we can improve the conditions of those modern neighborhoods that immediately surround an historical center. If we can improve the housing and public spaces and services of these neighborhoods and then move cultural institutions, public institutions out there, lodging for tourists into those centers, then we can disperse some of the congestion and hyperactivity of urban city historical centers more broadly into the metropolitan area and protect that fragile historical center and probably improve the quality of the whole city for local residents, not just. I think that cities were the original social media, and I still think they're the most effective one. When we first began to build structures, we were doing it to protect ourselves from nature, and we left space around those structures to protect ourselves from one another. When we started to come together in cities, we left spaces between our buildings, not to separate ourselves, but actually as places to come together. We use these spaces to trade both goods and ideas. And politically, these urban spaces are used for citizens to come together for both dialogue and for dissent. And the architecture that is the backdrop for these spaces can be a symbol of our common values or a symbol of power. We communicate a lot through digital media, but I think that political messages are felt more intensely when people can be seen to come together in these public spaces. And the lockdowns of the last year have really helped us to understand how digital communication just can't replace the real social interaction of meeting in public spaces. In architecture and urban spaces, social justice and equity is like mobility equity. Architectural barriers don't exist until we create them. And the same can be said for social justice barriers. I think architecture should be a democratizing force in society, especially in public buildings, but even in private buildings. Developers and architects should be thinking about diversity and inclusiveness and social justice from the outset of any project. And certainly governments should be considering diversity and social justice from the beginning of the planning process, zoning processes, and permitting processes. This question is a kind of like the game of rock, paper, scissors. No one element is more important than the other. Why would we want to sustain an ugly or meaningless, that is useless building? Beauty can be achieved through the elegant solution of sustainable design issues. And if a building is meaningful and reflects a kind of uplifting human spirit, it's probably going to be beautiful and long lasting by its very nature.